Have you ever felt stable, like you've pretty much got it together and you're becoming one of the most healthy versions of yourself, and then you show up at your family reunion and all of a sudden you find yourself acting out of patterns that you thought you had resolved years ago? No matter how many pep talks you give yourself, no matter how much meditation you do, something about sitting across from your parents or walking into your childhood home brings you right back to a teenage version of yourself. Well, you're not alone. This happens to a lot of us. It's called regression, and it's incredibly common. Basically, our brain reverts to a younger state of mind, and we find ourselves having responses or emotions that are from that state of mind. We may slip into a family role. Even if in our normal lives we care for others around us, suddenly we can find ourselves acting like the baby again. We can even feel childlike when it's happening, as if we don't have the resources that we know we have because we use them in our everyday adult life. So why does this happen, and what do we do to make it stop? Well, there are 4 reasons we might do this. Number 1, our brains make connections. One of the coolest things about our brains is that they are constantly taking in millions of pieces of information and finding any connection they can with previously collected data, memories, and emotions. They have an incredible storage system. So when you smell a certain scent, your brain immediately pulls up any emotions or experiences that you've had with that scent, just in case it's relevant. Everything is connected, and our brain has cataloged the details that maybe we aren't even mindful of. And what this means is, if you walk into a familiar place or you engage with a familiar person, your brain is going to pull up the memories and emotions that are associated with that place or person. Once those sensations are activated, it can really make it hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Number 2, relational dynamics. When it comes to family, we have to remember the dynamic has changed more than any other dynamic in our lives. And think about it. With our caregiver, many of us began as a newborn baby with our parents providing for our every need. And we were utterly dependent on them for survival. There was a certain dynamic in that relationship that we both operated out of. Then we changed. We grew up, right? And our parents, who were still adults, could have stayed the same, but we developed more resources and abilities and became our teenage selves, and the relationship had to shift. By the time some of us figured those things out, things had already pivoted again. Now we're adults, but our parents may still be thinking of us as children, and that can add a layer to the relationship that creates a struggle for power or just confusion in the dynamic that it's activating. We can feel like someone has flipped a switch, where we find ourselves acting like children when we're really an adult. And maybe the relationship itself feels like it only works if we play the role that we've always played growing up. Reason number 3, unresolved family conflicts. This is true of a lot of relationships. When we have something that's unstated, undealt with, or unresolved, our brains snag on it. It's sort of like telling someone not to think of a pink elephant. We automatically do. So once that conflict is on our minds, we often tend to behave the way that we were when it initially happened, whether that's at age 6 or 16. And if our brains know there's no way to really work through it, we might also find ourselves using indirect communication to passively try to solve the conflict, which we know is never really a good plan. We can make bids for resolution without actually addressing the conflict. For example, if you feel your parent is passive-aggressive, but there's no way to resolve it, you may end up using your words or behaviors to try to get them to see what's going on and maybe the conflict they're causing without being direct and telling them. And it ends up feeling like you're reverting to a version of yourself that maybe you don't like. Reason number 4, it could be an attempt to get our needs met. Similarly, we might have unmet childhood needs or childhood wounds we haven't dealt with. And whether we want to work this way or not, our subconscious mind is committed to getting those needs met and those wounds resolved with our caregiver. So we can find ourselves tapping into that child part of us that wants to feel love, safety, and security. or that teenage part of us that has created coping mechanisms to get those needs met or to help keep us safe. And I forgot to mention, because you might be wondering, well, why, if we're attempting to get our needs met, does that mean we revert back? And the truth is that when we have wounds from childhood, which I could argue that all of us do, we can think, maybe consciously or unconsciously, that those are the people, meaning the ones who possibly caused the wounds or were around when those wounds happened. We can think that those are the only people who will be able to finally help us heal or meet those needs or help us recover from that trauma. We're looking to them for answers and for healing, probably because they're our caregivers and they were supposed to do it initially. But whatever the reason, that's why we go back, and every time we go home for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever holidays we celebrate, we get caught back in that rut of feeling like a younger us, hoping that this time will be different and they'll be able to finally meet that need or finally say sorry or finally do the reparative work that we hope that they would. Because also, on a side note, it probably means that we haven't done the work ourselves to recognize that, unfortunately, we can't depend on others to meet those needs. We have to give them to ourselves. But I just wanted to further explain that because I feel like I kind of left you hanging there. Okay, so what do we do about it? One big thing we can do is work on our childhood wounds. I have an entire inner child workshop that can help you dive into this if you feel like this is a good next step for you. This is one thing that we can do to help ourselves get caught up in the relationship and set a new tone moving forward. But let's be honest, that process, that inner child work, can feel slow because it takes time. So here are 2 things that you can do today that will help. And number 1, first, we want to try to keep our mind as present as possible. If you feel that childhood self taking over in a moment, try to pay attention to your senses. What do you see? What is the fabric that you're wearing, like on your sweater? What does it feel like against your skin? What do you smell? Try to do whatever you can to bring yourself into the present and stay grounded. Even reminding yourself gently of the year, your age, where you're at, maybe where you live, all of that can be incredibly helpful and stop you from falling back into these old patterns that aren't as beneficial. And I'm back again because I forgot to mention too, within this first tool, it's not just about staying present. A huge component of this that I kind of feel like I maybe skimmed over is recognizing when we're feeling that pull. So it might be helpful before you go home to notice some of the ways that you acted last time that were kind of indicators that you're acting more childlike. Like for me, for instance, I stomp my feet when I get frustrated at home when I'm a kid. They used to call me Stomper. So I would stomp my feet. Or I might find myself like mumbling under my breath, like kind of things that as an adult, I don't engage in anymore. But as a kid, I did all the time. And so maybe try to parse or think about what the things are that you do that could be an indicator that you're going in this direction. And then we can use these kind of grounding techniques that I'm offering. Number 2, we can set boundaries. Boundaries are essential to solving this problem. And there are 2 kinds of boundaries that we're going to need to think through. Boundaries inside and boundaries outside. Boundaries at their core are about understanding where you stop and someone else begins. They're about taking back responsibility and control over our own behaviors and reactions. Internal boundaries have to do with knowing that we get to decide what goes on inside of us. And we are no longer going to give that power to the person on the other side of the relationship. So practically, maybe you're sitting around the dining room table and you visualize a pipe flowing between you and your sibling or you and your parent. And imagine a little barrier or shutoff valve on one side. You're in control of that valve. No matter what the person does on their side of the pipe, no matter what they try to shove in it, you get to decide what you let in or not. And you get to choose what is happening on your side. And setting boundaries externally, so that was internally, right? This is externally, is an extension of this. It's not about what someone else is doing or how you want them to behave. It's about how you are going to behave. Remember, we can't control other people, right? We can only control ourselves. An external boundary is an expression of how you're going to behave in a certain situation. For example, saying to a family member, please don't bring up that political issue, is a request. But saying, if you bring up that political issue, I'm going to have to move into the kitchen. That's a boundary. It's your awareness of how you're going to change your behavior if something feels unhealthy for you. And there's a lot that goes into boundary setting. Knowing ourselves and having healthy separation from others is one thing. The next is knowing how to communicate to others and what we can control. If you want to dive more into that, what are boundaries? Why are they important? What are the different types? How do I set them? What if someone doesn't respect them? And all that, I am hosting a workshop in early January, and it will be available for purchase starting this week. So make sure you're following me on socials or click the link below to make sure you get notified as soon as it opens up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful as the holidays are upon us. I hope to see you next time. Bye.